Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of August 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Just before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. The second link in the description box, is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, plus hang out with a really extraordinary group of people, and they are really quite exquisite. Plus we've got classes and all sorts of things going on. There's a wealth of information there. If you are interested, you know what to do with that link. So, Sag, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Sagittarius, please? Thank you. We have the 8 of Wands in your recent past. That's a Sagittarius card in and of itself, right there. Current energy for Sagittarius, please. We have the Star. That's Aquarius. And what about what's coming towards Sagittarius for August, please? We have the 4 of Swords. That's quite interesting. And I have absolutely no desire to flip it around. I think we might pull one extra card, actually, for this. Don't usually do that, but 7 of Pentacles. Right, we have the Hermit at the bottom of the deck. There, let's get a clarifying deck out. There's that one. Why is the 8 of Wands here for Sagittarius, please? We have the King of Swords, that's more Aquarius energy. And the King of Wands, goodness, right? Double fixed energy there. Tell me about the Star, please. We have 4 of Swords again, interesting. And the Wheel of Fortune, of course, the Sagittarian card. There it is. And tell me about this 4 of Swords and 7 of Pentacles, please. Right. We have the 7 of Cups, the 3 of Cups, and we have the 3 of Swords in reverse with the 2 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Now, I was wondering how it was that you were going to be able to top the energies of last month, because frankly they were nuts. They were really, really nuts. And I think what we've got going on is, how's the best way to put it? There's a process here, Sagittarius. And it's a very necessary one for the steps that you need to take moving forwards. Like, that much to me is abundantly clear, but we will get into it. Whereas last month, July, and if you haven't seen that video, I would suggest that you go and have a look. It felt to me like it was an acknowledgement of what you had been feeling for quite a long time, right? But it was about really drawing it into you, or maybe actually just really letting it out. Either way, there was an opening up here, a receiving, maybe even a giving. There was a real sense of you connecting to something. Now, whether you think that's your angels or source or the field or God or the universe, it doesn't really matter. It was just that absolutely tapped in vibe to something, right? I think I called the reading something like that. You will be changed this month. And it was not to do with, celestial bodies kind of hammering on you and your head and your identity and all that kind of thing. It was more embracing the energies that were coming towards you and owning them. That was a big thing for Sagittarius that month. Not just accepting that they have loads of energy, because you're a pretty energetic sign anyway, but it was like tapping into that level above it and then allowing yourself to own it. Well, I think what this month is about is assimilating what you have learned and coming to terms with some adjustments that are going to need to be made in your in your day-to-day existence, actually, to start allowing this energy to work on you the way that it does, or the way that it needs to. We'll get to that in a second. because I think we need to start, well, we need to start over here. This is quite involved, and I think that's going to take quite a lot of unpacking, and that's what the extended's for, right? We'll go into it in a sec. So we have this Sagittarius card here, and we've got, I just love the visuals in the Night Sun Tarot on this particular card here, because it talks about communication. We've got that interpretation there, but it also talks to me about an increase in momentum. And if we saw anything last month, it was absolutely an increase in momentum, but it was coming from the ownership. You know, the energies could have swirled around you, and they could have continued to be somewhat chaotic. You know, for some of you it might have manifested in a sort of a strange sort of anxiety that you couldn't really place. But in the Night Sun, we've got this visual of climbing up out of a hole. Now, I don't think that you have been in a hole per se, Sagittarius. I mean, certainly there's been a few issues and challenges this year, but certainly from the perspective of the last year, I think there's been an incredible amount of work done by you. And so whilst you might have been at the bottom of the hole, and you've still been able to perceive the light, and you're like, that's cool, that's up there. And because you're Sagittarius, you would have been making sure that you're having fun wherever you are. This sense of you kind of climbing up and out and towards the light, so that it is no longer just a pinprick in the distance, however deep this hole is down there, and you're like, there's the light, that's where I'm going. Now it's completely encompassing you. Right? It's all over you, it's through you, it's in you, it's out of you, it's everything, right? That tapped in. It's literally like the sun shining on your skin when you have been sat at the bottom of a dark hole. And I think that it's taken over in a way that it couldn't have before, because like I said, it was just maybe, you know, not necessarily an abstract, like that's where I want to go. I want to go up there where the light is. But now you seem actually to be here. And it's interesting that we've got these two very masculine, very active energies to support that, because we've got the King of Swords and the Father of and the King of Wands. They're referred to as Father in this deck, but it's the same sort of thing. So we have the axis of Aries and Leo being activated here, which is really quite strong. And Aquarius, this card of Aquarius here is about decision making, your decision making process, and the decisions that you actually come to. I see the Father of Swords, the King of Swords, as somewhat of an arbiter, right? It's about the decision making process. Traditionally, we used to associate that card with the professions, you know, so lawyer, doctor, judge, you know, accountant, those kind of things. The kind of the kind of careers where it was necessary for you to suspend your emotional investment in something so you could look at the facts of the matter. It sometimes has an energy of being a little bit cold, but it's always very fair, and it's always turning on its own facts. And I think that this is the thing that's been really interesting for your development over the last, for the last 6 weeks maybe. For some of you it might be a shorter time frame than that. Because what we've got is things beginning to make sense. And they are things that broadly shouldn't make sense if you're living very much in the material realm, and you're like, I've got to go to a job, do my 9 to 5, earn my money, come home, pay my bills, eat some food, watch Netflix, go to sleep. Not a typical Sagittarian day, I understand, but you know what I mean, like the kind of grind of the day-to-day stuff. Whereas where you seem to be going now is, for you specifically, uncharted territory. Now there's something incredibly exciting about that, obviously, but it isn't the, you know, the very obvious and kind of hedonistic experiences that you had at youth where you were kind of pushing at the extremes and all that sort of thing, right? The rules say you can't do that, so we're going to give it a go and see what happens. You know, there's always that sense of you kind of pushing against authority and pushing against structure and pushing against as walls and stuff like that. And for some of you there might have been a kind of nihilistic aspect to it, definitely a self-sabotaging aspect to it, but it was all very necessary for you to gain the experience that you needed to at least have an idea of where your limits might be. You know, the flying by the seat of your pants kind of energy that a lot of Sagittarians embody has seen you kind of skirting very close to it not quite being okay, and rather serendipitously being kind of saved by the bell, or saved by the hand of God, or fate, or something. Like, something's just happened that's had you swerve that way, right? So most Sagittarians have got this idea that they know how far they can push stuff. And that means that when it comes to things in your day-to-day, there's a certain level of ease, definitely competency, but also it's kind of relaxed attitude about the other things that people get really, really heads up about, right? So we can take all of that as read, and we know that that's true of the Sagittarian experience. But this is different, because when you're dealing with things of a deeply spiritual nature, particularly when it's personal spirituality, there are no rules. There isn't really any structure. You know, there are ways in which you can probably fuck it up, but those would be the ways that would involve you not listening to your intuition, not paying attention to signs, not being faithful, as in holding faith about what it is that you're doing, right? That would just sort of be a repetition of self-sabotaging behaviours from a more abstract point of view, rather than, you know, drinking to excess or taking too many drugs or whatever it might have been in its more material incarnation, like earlier on in your existence. And the reason that I'm talking about all of this is because we got these two kingly energies here, and this one here specifically is about understanding what actually kind of defies comprehension. It's about agreeing to go with it. It's about making a very conscious judgment, actually, that wherever this road takes you, and you know that it is, you know, uncharted territory, you are consciously going to do that, right? Because this kind of journey makes sense to you. You might struggle to explain it to other people, or you might find yourself having to boil it down into reductive terms so that people can understand what you're talking about. And even then, they might look at you like you're a little bit crackers. But it doesn't matter, because you've made the decision and you've made it for you. You've accepted it. You've embraced it, actually. You know, you've kind of almost picked a side on this one, because free will is everything. And you can be presented with all of this energetic, you know, fizziness, and, you know, you can be shown all the signs in the world that this is the path for you to follow. But if you're resistant about it, you can choose to do something else. Whether the universe allows you to keep doing that, or whether it's going to keep battering you with the energy until you submit, would be a different message altogether. Because you have accepted it, and because it does make sense to you. Possibly can't articulate it to other people, but it does make sense. And this Leo energy of the King of Wands is like, right, what do we do about it? You know, you could read the King of Wands as being you, but I feel like it's much more of an energetic presentation here. So this is your decision, and this is what you're going to do about it. You know, I always think with fire signs particularly, and it's not just restricted to you, Sagittarius, Aries and Leo are exactly the same, that often something really kind of needs to be your idea before you're willing to go along with it. Certainly you would see that kind of energy of Aquarius at play there too. If somebody else tells you that you have to do it, it's unlikely that it's going to happen. If somebody suggests it to you, you'll let it sit in there, you'll percolate, and you might do something, but it's at the point where you decide you're going to do something about it, which is where the action actually happens. So all these three cards together are talking now about you following this very conscious path into something that may feel very unconscious, may feel very ephemeral, slightly edgy, you know, but everything that you've been working through in the last year, and particularly the kind of revelations that have come up for you in the last few months, it's that cloak of faith. You're like, I'm good, I'm protected, whatever happens, I have done the work such as is necessary up until this point to be able to follow this path with impunity, whatever it is. Follow it with faith. Go where it is going to take me. And to that degree, when we come into your present energy, we have the star. Now, the star means variously lots of different things to me, but if we just take the very obvious visual of a star, which is up in the sky, there's the direction of travel. Again, it's Aquarius energy, so it is talking about the future and all those sorts of things. There's even a little technological kind of bent that we see coming in with Aquarius too. But because of its very obvious visual of the star up in the sky, for me it talks very specifically about connection. Because, when we talk about following a guiding star, certainly in the way that we use it nowadays, we don't literally mean that there was a great big celestial body in the sky that was kind of twinkling at us and went, "Wee, Sag, this way." We're talking about a feeling that generates in here. Right? And it's looking at the star as an idea, as a concept, maybe it's even just a view of what your future may hold. And it stirs something down here. And when it stirs something down here, there's a very obvious causal link. There's a very obvious link between this and that, whether it's abstract or it's a very, very solid plan. There's something going on here. And it is necessary to trust that feeling, to go, to follow it. And that's what we're saying when we say we followed our guiding star. We saw a thing, it spoke to us, we heard it, we trusted the message, and we acted accordingly. We might have changed course altogether. We might have dropped what we were doing, and we might, and we've gone that way. But it also talks about profound healing. And I think, I said a few years ago, and I think I reiterated this many times afterwards, that there is something innately healing about the Sagittarian energy. Not when it's bouncing around from pillar to post and looking for new ways to push at the edges of stuff, but when it comes back to the equilibrium. Because if you're used to your life being like this, that and the other, and you can pull yourself back to center, it seems to me that there's something that comes from Sagittarius energy that then allows other people to be affected by it. Like I put it before, like Sagittarius has an area of effect, like a computer game, right? You kind of wander around and people are healed just by being in your proximity. And it doesn't have to be a physical proximity, right? This could absolutely happen over, cyberspace if you wanted to, because it's an energetic thing. Right? So if you're thinking about someone, they're feeling that, right? And there's a corresponding healing that comes from it. If they're thinking about you, they're tapping into your energy there, and you have it in spades, you have it in absolute abundance, and you can let it out. Now, I like this Four of Swords here because it sits very nicely with what the energies we're talking about here, and that is coming to a place of absolute peace with where it is that you are going, right? Even if you don't know where the destination is yet, right? It's just that the path has been illuminated. It's there. And it's very obvious to you, Sagittarius, but maybe you can only see where it goes, up until it crests the hill, and you got no idea where it goes after that. You just know that the draw, the pull is very, very strong, and this is your path. And it's that bringing it back to you that is so very fucking important over and over again. We've got the Hermit card at the bottom of the deck, which does speak to the internal journey. All of the answers to any question you could possibly have are already sitting here within you. And if you don't know what they are yet, then you just need to check in with yourself, see where that path goes. We're talking about things in terms of an external path, but really the path is internal here, Sag. And I've spoken before about how Sagittarius seems to be one of those signs who has been kind of sometimes terrified of their own death, to the extent that they won't actually allow themselves to experience it. And when you bring yourself back to center eventually, when that happens, a lot of that is kind of characterized by this internal prodding and poking and being like, what is going on in here? What is all of this about? It's the exploration of your own depth. And you surprise yourself with the things that you come out with. And I think what's been really, really interesting for you, Sagittarius, is to come to this place, where you're owning all sorts of shit, but owning within you the realization that you are actually quite a wise old soul. And it's nothing to do with being right all the time. It's a particular perspective on the world. It's a particular perspective on you, what it is that you are capable of. Because maybe that's the point with the extremes. If you know roughly how close you can sail to your limits, you've got a better idea than most on what it is that you are capable of and what it is that you can achieve. Now, we're turning that energy inward, or looking to connect to things that are a little less obvious and a little less visible than everything else that you've been engaged in your life before, then what's starting to come through is this burgeoning realization that there's some canny fucking wisdom in there, and you can tap into it. And I think a shock for you has probably been looking around and realizing the extent to which other people who profess to be deeper than you are, and you've never made any claims about that, Sagittarius, you're actually probably kind of running the other way and going, nah, don't, no depth here. We're all about the moment. It's all about the here and now, and that's it. Those who profess to be deeper or claim to be deeper, it seems to me you're kind of looking at them and you're going, that's kind of puddle depth, that. But I don't feel like you're doing it with a sense of judgment, because in the middle of you owning all of your own shit, there is also this acceptance that you seem to have come to, this level of peace that you've come to, that says, do you know what, everybody's on their own path. This is my path and I like this path. I won't go on your path, but that's the right one for you, and you go do that thing, right? The wisdom in the way that you are seeing the world, seeing yourself, seeing the big fucking picture here, Sagittarius. Between you and Aquarius, interestingly, the two signs that kick back the hardest against authority and structure and rules. Between the pair of you, you can see something that exists beyond that. And I think that you're looking to refashion your conscious experience into something that is much more like what you see, or the connection that you feel, rather, than what currently exists. And in some respects, that means pushing aside the things that have occupied your time up until this point. And I'm not saying that you're all going to be actual hermits and you're going to go and live on a in a hut in the woods or anything like that. Although I could see there being a certain draw to that for you. You just don't seem to be sweating the small stuff anymore. The things that are, materially realm based, you're going to deal with those as far as you need to. But there's something so much more expansive out there. And so, your alone time, your peaceful time, your meditation time, possibly, these are all becoming increasingly important to you. And whatever that looks like for you is the right thing for you. Because there's an activation of something pretty hefty going on here, right? Well, we know that the lunar nodes, they shifted yesterday. Interestingly enough, I was actually doing a personal reading with Sag when that happened, and true to form, I witnessed the pivot in action on what she was feeling and how comfortable she was with it in the space of an hour. How it went from to, yeah, that's just what I'm doing. It's amazing stuff. Tell me about this Wheel of Fortune, please. We've got the Three of Swords. We've got this Knight of Pentacles here. Now, I like this Three of Swords. word that comes to mind as soon as I see it is trauma-informed, which is really, really funny, right? Well, it's not a funny thing, right? It's actually a really sad thing that any of us have to be trauma-informed. But I think a lot of the work that you've been doing on yourself in the last year is about recognizing where that trauma has been in you. Like this is one of two depictions of the Three of Swords in the Tower of the Abyss, and it's the one that is of most use. You know, I've often said that the Three of Swords was a card that didn't really make any sense to me as an emotional card because it's a swords card. It's about intellect and reason, and then I came up with a whole kind of reason why it would be relevant, because for me it's about when the swords hit the heart, right? That knowledge of something hits your emotional space and suddenly it can't be the same as it was before. It's something about it is damaged. But you notice here we don't have any implication of heart or anything like that. What we've got is a man who is reading a book of the story of his life, and there is no emotional aspect to it now. This is data, this is information, and he is, it works beautifully actually with the Hermit card, with the message of the Hermit card, which is that everything that you need to know you've experienced, and it's sitting in there. It's a database and it's just waiting to be catalogued in some sort of way, I guess. This energy of the Three of Swords here is absolutely the act of cataloguing it. It's seeing the wisdom in the kind of experiences that have been sent to you up until this point, particularly those that have been very, very painful in nature. And it's creating this kind of feedback loop almost, where you don't really need to refer to outside of you at all, because it's like all the answers are in the book there somewhere. It's just knowing that, roughly the chapter that it's sitting in, being able to go back and revisit that and go, all right, I kind of see, these letters are coming off the page and turning into birds and going into his head again. There's the loop, round and round and round. And it's about pain. It's about the difficulty of one's experiences. But I do think a lot of what is going on here is about you making sense of it. Like I said, because it's coming out under the Wheel of Fortune there, which is, your card. It's almost perceiving the beauty of the crappy stuff that you've experienced, because it's given you so much, and it's given you far much more than the things that you've done that you've enjoyed. But it has been your ability to enjoy yourself even in the midst of crisis, emotional crisis, albeit it's because you've been able to shut off and go, actually, right, I'm going to be in the moment right now, and I'm going to do something that isn't sitting with that. There's a lot of peace that's being made here. And now you can go back on those things and you can draw wisdom from them. And you're going to. But the Wheel of Fortune is a shift. And I think the shift is caused by this energy rather than a shift causing this energy. And we've got the Knight of Pentacles, which is a kind of slightly irritating energy for Sagittarius, I think, because it's the slowest moving knight in the deck. It's also Virgo energy, and as we know, there's harking back to 2020, there was a point where Virgo energy was present for a lot of Sagittarians, and it was triggering. There was a lot of stuff that went on with that, and it wasn't just in 2020, it actually continued on. But as I believe I said to you a couple of months ago, right, there was something really significant that you needed to learn from Virgo, and vice versa. And part of it is consistency. When we talk about Virgo energy, we're talking about, and we've got double Virgo energy on the table. There's attention to detail. Now, because it's you, it's not attention to all details. Virgo often has trouble kind of getting themselves out of the out of the detail to look at the big picture, and that's where you win, right? You're big picture all day long, but sometimes you have difficulty nailing down the details. It's about getting really good at noticing which details are important, and I think that's where you are right now. So some things, like I said, you don't sweat the small stuff, just let that go. Some of it you might just pin and you go, right, okay, well, I just bear that in mind for future reference and I can come back to it if I need to. But sometimes some things are worth taking your time over. Sometimes there are practical considerations for things. You know, sometimes it is worth looking at the detail, and certainly here, you know, these are details that are coming off the page. He hasn't just looked at the title of the book and gone, all right, okay, that's cool, that's what I need to know from that, and then chucked it away. He's looked for a chapter. Maybe he's looked for a specific paragraph within that chapter, the one that holds the detail that he's looking for. You don't have to reread the book over and over again, but you do need to pay attention to the details that matter, because there's a huge shift here. And we know, I mean, the nodes have just moved, and this transition from Taurus energy into Aries energy for the North Node is going to be palpable for everyone. You know, Aries is now beating the war drum. There's movement now. You know, where Taurus was about, I think for you, a lot of it was about assimilating where you were at and kind of getting comfortable at where you're at. And you've got comfortable to the degree that you're now willing to go that way. Aries is just like, well, let's fucking move now, please. Why is everybody standing still? Thing is, you don't need to worry about everybody else standing still, because this is very, very much about you. So you need to stop standing still, and you need to push yourself into wherever it is that you're going to go. And I do believe that you're 100% committed with this Knight of Pentacles now, committed to this path, which is ace, right? Maybe you all pivoted really, really quickly, like my client yesterday. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to embrace my destiny. If you told me this a year ago, I probably would have laughed in your face because it sounds ridiculous, but now it's who I am and I'm going after it. Now, where things get a little bit interesting, like I said, there is quite a lot to unpack here. Is where it comes to anything that pretty much isn't you. I'll put it like that. You know, the Seven of Pentacles is often a card of there being something that is not right in our environment, right? It's a Saturn card anyway, and it's Saturn in Taurus. So we're kind of looking around and we're going like, there's something off here. There is something that needs to change in some way or another. You know, the only thing that really is certain about this card is that if you refuse to take one action over another, then you've essentially taken an action and you've absolutely ensured that what is currently you know, inconvenient and giving you a little bit of, you know, side eye at a situation is just going to increase, and possibly increase exponentially, you know, the more that you leave it alone. So your options are invest more or withdraw your investment. And which one of these is going to be right for you is going to be different for each of you, right? Every situation needs to be looked at on its merits, and that's one of the reasons why I actually really like the Seven of Pentacles, because it does imply that you are looking at every situation on its merits, right? What is its relative value to you? Is it going to increase? Does it have the possibility of yielding what you want it to yield? Like, we've got this Four of Swords here, which has come out sideways. It actually feels like a level of indecision to me, because this would be pulling away from something, taking a break from something. This would be like, okay, well, I'm ready to move on something now. But it hasn't really committed to either of those energies. It's kind of hanging in the balance. So then August feels it's a little bit like, what do I do about this? Now, some of you might be waiting to see how things pan out, and that's a totally legitimate course of action, provided that you are ready to own the fact that action or inaction essentially amount to the same thing. And if you want to gain clarity on a situation, then I think action from you is required. Now, to put more context to this, we have the Seven of Cups, the Three of Cups, and the Three of Swords in reverse here. Now, these two cards are kind of difficult, they're kind of challenging. Well, thankfully, the Three of Swords is in the reverse here. But this all revolves around other people, which is somewhat vexatious for you, Sagittarius, because you've got your shit together, you know where you're going, everything's fine. But I'm wondering if it is going to be the perspectives of other people that kind of throw a spanner into the works for you this month. Not because they are going to pull you from your path or have you deviate in any way from your path, but it's going to be those people who are hesitant or resistant. This big white spider's just descended from my microphone. Hello, little guy. Well, he's coming to check out the cards. Cool. It's the actions, reactions, and emotional, specifically emotional reactions from other people that seem to be clouding the issue here. This Seven of Cups it feels to me like it's absolute bafflement from other people. Now, like I said, this is not affecting your certainty about the direction of travel and why this is right for you, but I think it might throw you off a little bit to see just how, just how resistant people around you might be to these ideas that you've had, right? And with this certainty of the path of travel. But then also by extension, just how far from their own path they seem to be. The Three of Cups for me talks about emotional support networks, and we can include your significant other in that. They would definitely be part of it. But we're certainly also talking about friends, we're talking about family, we're talking about people that you spend time with, who, whose input on things you would value, usually. Now, I'm not saying that you should tell everybody to fuck off and leave. And just go be the hermit, walk a solitary path and go and live in the woods and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like the responses of people that you thought would be very much on board with the way that you are changing everything around in your life are a little less so. Let's pull some cards out here. Tell me about this Seven of Cups. So we have the Queen of Pentacles. And we have the Three of Cups in reverse. Oh, that's for sure. And the Three of Cups. The Emperor. I think there might be the revelation of some surprise and control. Some subtle methods of control that you are becoming aware of in the month of August. Like I said, there's an absolute dedication to the path. There's an absolute, you are now walking in faith on where, on the path that you're traveling on, even though you don't know where it's going, right? Especially because you don't know where it's going. And because this is something that you would respect in other people, even if you didn't quite understand what you were doing, what they were doing, the fact that they were dedicated to it, committed to it, that you would recognize that intensity and you'd recognize that level of self-belief, and you'd be like, "That's cool. Don't really know what you're doing, but that's cool." Right? You would be impressed by it rather than baffled by it, and I feel like you aren't getting that same level of response in return. Like I said, this is not going to be sufficient to pull you off your path, but it feels to me like you're confused by it. And I think what's starting to show in August is actually a surprising amount of subtle control that is being attempted at being exercised over you. And it's going to be really, really interesting for you this month, because I think that you'll be able to sort into two hats. The people who get it and the people that don't. Like I said, the people that get it have no idea where you're going, but they see, they are witness to what is changing in you spiritually, and they're standing at the sidelines with the pom-poms and they're like, this is good shit, keep doing this, Sagittarius. The others, it feels to me like you're seeing them properly for the first time, because what is being revealed to you is the extent of the very subtle coercion that's going on. There's very subtle manipulation of you and your ideas. It seems to me like these people are actually trying to get you to second guess yourself. Now, I should draw a distinction between the ones who are kind of testing where you're at with stuff, right? Suggesting perhaps that maybe you haven't thought about this and you haven't thought of that, right? But you'll be able to distinguish between these people, because those people will actually listen to your responses. They'll feel what's coming up from you and they'll go, right, okay, this is pretty fucking pure. And because it's Sag, they can pivot, they can turn on a sixpence, and when things come up, they'll be able to deal with them. That's cool, right? And they're someone else. We're talking about the people who kind of like subtly trying to undermine you, because I do that Queen of Pentacles for me actually feels on one side like it's a kind of passive rigidity. It's almost like a lack of acceptance. I don't know why that should be, but I'm looking at this pentacle that's rooted in the ground, and on one side of it, it feels like people are uncomfortable with the way that you are moving. And it's nothing to do with you, it's to do with what it highlights in them, and there's some level of discomfort here, and they're like, Sag can't go do this. Not Sagittarius. Not, I can skip along, be hedonistic, kind of bowling along. It's the people that don't perceive your depths. And you don't blame them for that. There's no kind of I actually don't feel like you feel any anger towards them because of that, because for the longest time you didn't acknowledge your own depth either. But it shows you where people are sitting in terms of how kind of with you they are. So if you're suddenly embracing your own depths and people are looking at you and going, fucking hell, like, I feel like there's a bit of projection going on. There's a little bit of subtle undermining. There's a little bit of, don't get above your fucking station, Sagittarius. And it feels to me like it feels to you like it comes completely out of left field, but you see it so very fucking clearly this month. And so then the other side of the Queen of Pentacles, as she relates to you specifically, is here's an opportunity, another opportunity for you to invest in you and start working through your emotional support networks and sift them out. Because the naysayers, there might be good crack in other ways, but you seem to me to be dedicating your life so strongly to wherever you are being pulled, in here, out there, whatever, that it will effectively act as an undermining if you allow these people to continue to be people that you rely on. Now, I'm not saying that you need to tell them to fuck off and never darken your doorstep like that or anything again, but I think from this point on, there is going to be a gentle switch of attention from them as part of what had been considered to be an emotional support network for you before, to other people who feel like they're much more energetically in alignment with you. You see this Three of Cups is in the reverse here. We go from emotional support network to not emotional support network. It might be that you spend a little less time with them, and that might be necessary because I was going to say, actually, you might not choose to talk to these people about this thing. But then if you're as committed to this as it feels to me like you are, then this is going to be something that you're going to want to talk about. It's like whenever you find something that that is new and exciting, and you absolutely rabbit hole about it and you become an absolute mega nerd, and you want to talk to other people about this because you're hungry to learn, and you're hungry to expand the depth of knowledge that you have, the depth of wisdom that you have access to. And talking to other people who understand what you're talking about is a really good way of expanding that. If you're having to necessarily contract yourself to be in the company of someone who is threatened by your exploration of your depth, then they're not part of the tribe. Not the inner sanctum, at least, anyway. Like, you know, if sure, go for a drink or something with, you know, with a group of them or whatever, but don't expect to get anything that to you feels of the kind of value that you are looking to pursue here. This Emperor card, it feels like a subtle attempt at control. That's the thing that's being highlighted here. They don't get it. Some people might think you've absolutely lost your fucking marbles. Right? Oh my God, Sagittarius has fried their brain. They think they're Jesus now, you know, all these sorts of things. You know, it's kind of like cheap digs. But what you're doing is exposing the absence of things that are important in these people, right? And they know it, they feel it, and they respond to it. And they're like, don't get above your station, Sagittarius, because you make me feel bad about myself. That's the end thing there. And, you know, for you, that's absolutely the antithesis of what you are. Like, you don't want to make anybody feel bad about it. Like, you're kind of walking around with this healing aura here at the moment, and you're going to have to accept this is a very necessary, I think, foundation point for where you go next, that for a lot of people there is going to be healing that they receive from you, but for you know, a section of other people, there's going to be something about you that is inherently triggering, and they will respond accordingly. It's for you to get very, very good at spotting those things. And some of those people that get triggered will do their work as a result, but some of them won't. And it's important to realise that sometimes those calls are coming from within what has been the house of your emotional support networks. You know, we've got the Page of Swords there, which is about mental expansion, right? And you're here for it, right? You are the student now of the universe, and you're hungry for information. You're hungry for all of this stuff to come in. For you, this month seems to be about removing anything that might represent an energetic obstacle to you, because it always comes in subtly. No one is going to go up against you, Sag, and just tell you that you're a fucking loon. It feels to me like this is all, it's going to be happening in the background. It's mutterings and whisperings, or it's subtle digs, it's little underhand things, you know. But the fact is, like, you're so beyond this now that it's not going to be an issue for you unless you try and hold on to certain relationships that are there because of longevity, simply because they always have been there. We don't have to, we don't have to get shitty with people about stuff, but recognizing where there's a potential for somebody to be trying to constantly burst your bubble for you, when you spent such a long time crafting and creating this and allowing yourself to see it in that, like, you've come too far now to hold on to a relationship just because it's been there forever. Like, you're going in a direction and not everybody is following you, and we wish them all well. Everybody's on their own path. We absolutely see it here, but there are things, there are people, there are circumstances, there are situations in your material existence that will affect you energetically if you don't clean house here. Like I say, you don't have to be confrontational about it. You just have to start being much more selective. Yeah. We've got the Ten of Swords and the Five of Cups. Ooh, that was the Four of Wands on the bottom of the deck there. And some of these may hurt. Some of these may needle a little bit. But we don't lose sight of the bigger picture. And this is the danger, I think. This is the possibility that might happen this month, is that you just kind of like, oh, it's not going to take you off your path. It's not going to take you off your direction of travel, but it may be distracting. And there's an opportunity here to create a really good foundation for yourself where everything is energetically cleared, and the people that are there are the people who are your tribe, who are 100% kind of on a journey of a similar sort of nature to you. You can talk to them about the same sort of things. You know, we've got the Ten of Swords. This is just yet another instance of the things that you have experienced up until this point. And honestly, longevity of relationship means nothing at this point. There could be new people that have been coming into your life that you've known for a matter of fucking weeks, and they're there. You know, they're rubbing alongside and they're like, yep, we're all going in the same direction. There can be other people that you've known since you were 6 who you would think would be there for you and support you and all that kind of thing. And maybe to a casual glance it might look like they are, but these people are needled and triggered and attempting to exert a subtle control over where you go next. And it's nothing to do with you exactly. We're talking about deficits in them. So the best thing for you to do would be to, you know, energetically wish them well and then separate yourself from them. Do not allow yourself to become absolutely consumed by that, because I think that would be a mistake. So, yeah, not least because you're in the act of creating a new foundation. Exactly as I'm saying, it's foundational right here. It's joy, it's happiness, it's Aries energy, interestingly as well. And this month is the first month of, the next 18 months of that Aries energy really influencing everything. It's forward. There is no going back here. One of the ways of looking at this card is it's a portal. It's 1111. 11 being the number of internal mastery. It's also the number of the spiritual teacher, interestingly enough, but we will not get too close to that just yet. I'll give you a few months to settle into the energy, right? So it's about walking through here. I think once you walk through here, there is no turning back. Everything's changed, everything's shifted, like the landscape around you changes. And the removal of some of these people, and there might even be situations as well, there might be groups of people. It's clearing the way, it's clearing the path. And your focus should be on this creation of a new foundation, not trying to drag people who frankly just cannot match your level at this point. It's better to walk the path alone for a little bit than try and take people along that you care about who aren't interested in going. Because they're going to slow you down, they'll probably stop you for a little while, and eventually they'll end up turning around and leaving of their own volition anyway, but not before having had a really good go at trying to stop you moving forwards. I think this Four of Swords here is actually really good advice if you're not quite sure which way the scales are tipping in any given situation. Just sort of sit on the fence, observe, pay attention. You don't need to indulge in any knee-jerk behaviours here. You can watch, you can slowly let things play out, but be aware of it, because the rectification of this situation needs to come from you. It's an internal thing, and whether they're part of the fold or they're not comes down to where they sit with you energetically. But once you see it and once you feel it, then you'll know what to do. Got to break some eggs to make an omelette. There's the tower underneath. Right, on that note, I'm going to go over to the extended now. You can either join me on Vimeo or join me on Circle if you wish to. If not, keep doing what you're doing, Sagittarius, but be aware of those more underhand ways of attempting to route you to the spot, because they're not in your best interest. and those people certainly aren't acting in their own best interests either. But I shall leave it there. Okay, know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.